"Are you blind, delivery girl?" Clara Bennett sneered, her Porsche spraying muddy water at Amara Jackson. Soaked, the young black girl clutched her bike, whispering, "I'll keep going." Humiliated in the rain, Amara faces cruel taunts, none of whom feel sorry for Amara, but her quiet strength shines through. A powerful figure watches from a luxury car, witnessing the injustice done to her and ready to help her change her fate. Can Amara rise above the hate to achieve her dreams? Join us as we explore her journey from mud to mastery. If you enjoy stories of triumph, hit the subscribe button to see our latest videos. Leave a comment, where are you watching? Let's see how Amara's story goes. Tune in to find out if one act of kindness can rewrite her life. The rain fell in a restless drizzle, cloaking West Side in a gray haze. Amara Jackson, 28, pedaled her battered bicycle through the slick streets, her breath fogging in the muggy noon air. Her delivery bag, heavy with containers of smothered chicken and cornbread, thumped against her back, each jolt a reminder of the hustle that defined her days. The tires hummed against the wet asphalt, a gritty rhythm in sync with her heartbeat. Amara wasn't just a delivery rider. She was a chef, once a sous chef at the Grand Meridian Hotel, her hands skilled at coaxing soul from simple ingredients. Now she poured that skill into her small food business, every meal a tribute to her late mother's recipes, every delivery a step toward keeping her younger brother, Malik, in medical school. Her raincoat, faded and patched, clung to her skin, doing little to shield her from the damp. Braids tucked under a worn cap, she leaned into the wind, eyes fixed on the road ahead. West Side's crumbling sidewalks and flickering streetlights faded behind her as she approached the glittering edge of downtown. Technova Tower loomed in. The distance, a glass monolith where she delivered lunches to office workers who barely glanced her way. Her fingers tightened on the handlebars, calloused from years of kneading dough and gripping knives. She whispered to herself, a mantra against the chill, "Just get through today." The roar of an engine shattered the quiet. A white Porsche Cayenne surged around the corner, its sleek frame cutting through the rain like a blade. Amara swerved toward the curb, her bike wobbling, but it was too late. The car's tires hit a deep puddle, sending a wave of black gritty water crashing over her. It soaked her face, her clothes, her bag, the cold filth seeping into her bones. She gasped, brakes squealing as she stopped, her cap knocked askew. Mud dripped from her braids, stinging her eyes. The Porsche slowed, and the tinted window rolled down just enough to reveal Clara Bennett, Technova's marketing director. Her blonde hair was pinned in a flawless updo, her red lipstick sharp as a razor. She leaned out, sunglasses glinting, and sneered, "Stay on the sidewalk, you filthy delivery girl." Her laugh was cold, a blade wrapped in silk before the window snapped shut and the car roared away. Amara stood frozen, water pooling at her feet, her heart pounding with a mix of shock and shame. The street was empty, but the weight of Clara's words pressed into her chest, heavier than the mud. She wiped her face with a trembling hand, smearing dirt across her cheek. For a moment she saw her reflection in a nearby shop window. Braids, dripping, raincoat sagging, eyes burning with something she wouldn't let spill. Not tears, not yet. She thought of her mother who'd stood tall through worse, whispering, "You're beautiful because you're strong." Amara straightened, gripping her bike. "I'll keep going," she muttered, her voice low but fierce, a promise to herself. Across the street, a black sedan idled quietly, its tinted windows hiding its occupant. Julian Wright, 35, CEO of Technova, sat inside, his sharp eyes catching every detail. The splash, Clara's cruel smirk, Amara's unbroken resolve. His jaw clenched. He knew Clara, her charm a polished mask for clients, her venom reserved for those she deemed beneath her. Julian's fingers tapped the armrest, his mind already turning. He'd built Technova from nothing, a kid from a single mother who'd cooked in greasy diners to raise him. Something about Amara's quiet defiance stirred a memory of his own. Mother, her hands worn but steady, her pride unshaken. He picked up his phone, his voice calm but edged with purpose. "Find out who that woman is. I want her story." Amara pedaled on, the tower growing closer, its glass facade a mocking contrast to her soaked state. Her shoes squished with each push, the delivery bag now heavier with wet containers. She could feel the eyes of passers-by, their quick glances, and turned heads, but she kept her chin up, refusing to shrink. At home, Malik would be waiting, probably studying for his next exam, his dream of becoming a doctor resting on her shoulders. She thought of their tiny apartment, the single bulb flickering above their kitchen table, the bucket where she soaked her mother's old recipes in memory. Losing her job at the hotel to care for her mother's cancer had broken something in Amara, but it hadn't broken her. This mud wouldn't either. She reached Technova Tower, its lobby gleaming with marble and chrome. The receptionist, a young man with a bored expression, took her bags without a word. Amara hesitated, her fingers brushing the muddy straps. "Careful, they're wet," she said softly, her voice steady despite the humiliation still burning in her chest. The receptionist nodded, barely looking up. As she turned to leave, Clara swept through the lobby, her heels clicking, a group of staff trailing her. She spotted Amara and paused, her lips curling. "This is a professional building, not a swamp," she said loudly, her voice carrying across the lobby. A few employees snickered, others looked away, their silence louder than laughter. Amara's hands clenched, but she met Clara's gaze for a fleeting second, her eyes steady, unyielding. She said nothing, just turned and walked out, the glass doors hissing shut behind her. Outside, the rain had slowed to a faint mist. Amara climbed back on her bike, her wet clothes chafing against her skin. She could still hear Clara's words, each one a jab at the life she'd fought to hold together. But she thought of Malik's smile, the way he'd hug her after a long day, calling her Sis, the superhero. She thought of her mother's kitchen, the smell of collard greens, simmering, the lessons woven into every dish. Keep your head up no matter what. Amara pedaled back toward Westside, the city's skyline fading behind her. The mud was drying now, cracking on her raincoat like a badge of survival. Julian's sedan pulled away from the curb, following at a distance. He didn't know Amara's name yet, but he'd seen enough. Her posture, her refusal to break, the way she carried herself like someone who'd faced worse and still stood. His assistant's voice crackled through the phone. "I'll have the file by morning, sir." Julian nodded, his eyes still on the figure pedaling through the rain. "Good," he said softly. "She's not invisible. Not anymore." Amara. Didn't know it yet, but that puddle, that moment had set something in motion. A spark had ignited, one that would burn brighter than the city's lights, brighter than the cruelty that tried to dim her. For now she rode on, her heart steady, her hands gripping the future she refused to let slip away. The glass doors of Technova Tower hissed shut behind Amara Jackson, sealing her in a world of polished marble and cold fluorescent light. Her clothes, still damp from the muddy assault of Clara Bennett's Porsche, clung to her skin, the weight of the filth heavier than the delivery bag slung over her shoulder. Each step squished softly, her worn sneakers leaving faint smears on the pristine floor. The lobby buzzed with the hum of corporate life, phones ringing, heels clicking, voices murmuring in clipped professionalism. Amara, 28, felt like an intruder, her presence a smudge on the tower's gleaming facade. She approached the receptionist's desk, her braids dripping, her raincoat sagging under the weight of the rain, and Clara's venomous words. "Stay on the sidewalk, you filthy delivery girl." The receptionist, a young man with slicked-back hair and a distracted frown, barely glanced up as she slid the delivery bag across the counter. "Lunch order for floor 12, Amara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. She brushed a muddy strand of hair from her face, her fingers trembling. "Careful, it's a bit wet." The receptionist nodded, his eyes flicking to her soaked appearance before returning to his screen. Amara turned to leave, her heart still, raw from the street. when a sharp voice sliced through the lobby's hum. "Oh, look at this," Clara Bennett called, her tone dripping with disdain. She stood at the center of a small cluster of staff, her blonde hair catching the light like a crown, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to Amara's tattered raincoat. "Did you swim here? This is a professional building, not a laundromat." Her words carried across the lobby, sharp and deliberate, drawing snickers from a few employees. Others shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting away, their silence a louder betrayal. Amara froze, her hand tightening on the strap of her empty bag. Clara's gaze locked onto hers, a smirk curling her lips, her sunglasses now pushed atop her head like a weapon she didn't need to wield. "Maybe try a shower next time," she added, her voice a velvet-wrapped barb. Amara's cheeks burned, the heat rising under her skin like a tide. She wanted to speak, to fire back, but the weight of every eye in the lobby pinned her in place. She was no stranger to judgment. Growing up black in West Side, she'd felt it in the stares of shopkeepers, the muttered comments on buses. But this was different. Clara's words weren't just cruel, they were a performance, a public stripping of Amara's dignity. She met Clara's gaze for a fleeting moment, her brown eyes steady, unyielding. But inside, a crack formed. She turned and walked toward the exit, her steps deliberate, refusing to let them see her break. Outside, the drizzle had stopped, leaving the air thick with the scent of wet asphalt. Amara climbed onto her bike, her hands shaking as she gripped the handlebars. The city stretched before her, its skyscrapers indifferent, its pulse uncaring. She pedaled slowly, the echo of Clara's voice looping in her mind. Filthy. Laundromat. Each word was a needle, pricking at the armor she'd built over years of struggle. She thought of her mother, who'd worked double shifts as a cook, her hands smelling of onions and resilience. "You're beautiful because you're strong," her mother had said, brushing Amara's hair before bed, her voice a lullaby against the world's harshness. But now, soaked and humiliated, Amara felt anything but strong. She stopped at a red light, her reflection caught in a shop window. The woman staring back was a mess. Mud-streaked raincoat, braids limp with water, eyes shadowed with doubt. Was this who she was now? Not the sous chef who'd once plated dishes for hotel elites. Not the daughter who'd promised her dying mother she'd keep going. But a delivery girl, invisible except when mocked. The thought clawed at her, a shadow of self-doubt that hadn't surfaced since her mother's funeral 2 years ago. She'd left her job at the Grand Meridian to care for her, watching cancer steal her mother's light. Now, she carried that loss in every meal she cooked, every delivery she made, to keep her brother Malik in school. But Clara's words made her feel small, like the world saw only the mud, not the woman beneath it. Back at her one-bedroom apartment in West Side, Amara kicked off her soggy shoes and dropped her bag by the door. The space was cramped, the walls stained with time, but it was home. A single bulb flickered above the kitchen table, casting a warm glow over Malik's textbooks, stacked neatly beside a half-eaten plate of cornbread. Malik was at the library, chasing his dream of becoming a doctor, and Amara felt a pang of pride, mixed with exhaustion. She crossed to the sink, splashing cold water on her face, trying to wash away the day. In the cracked bathroom mirror, she studied herself again. The mud was gone, but the sting lingered. She closed her eyes, hearing her mother's voice. "You're beautiful because you're strong." She exhaled, her resolve hardening. "I'll keep going," she whispered, a vow to herself, to her mother, to Malik. In the kitchen, she pulled out a worn notebook filled with her mother's recipes: smothered chicken, collard greens, peach cobbler. Each page was a piece of her, a legacy Amara poured into every meal she delivered. She started chopping onions, the rhythm of the knife grounding. The tears that came weren't from the onions, but she let them fall, a quiet release. She thought of Malik, his lopsided grin when she packed his lunch, his faith in her as Sis the superhero. She couldn't let him down, not after everything they'd lost. Clara's words were a wound, but wounds heal, and Amara had survived. Across town in Technova's glass-walled penthouse office, Julian Wright sat at his desk, a file open before him. His assistant had worked fast, delivering a slim dossier on Amara Jackson, 28, former sous chef, left the Grand Meridian to care for her dying mother, now running a food delivery business to support her brother's medical studies. Julian's eyes lingered on a photo, a candid shot of Amara at a street market, her smile warm but weary. He saw his own mother in her, a woman who'd cooked through exhaustion to raise him alone. Clara's cruelty in the lobby, witnessed from a corner where he'd been reviewing reports, had turned his stomach. He'd seen Amara's fleeting defiance, the way she held her ground without a word. "She's not invisible," he murmured, closing the file. His fingers tapped the desk, a plan forming, though he wasn't ready to act, not yet. Amara, unaware of Julian's gaze, finished prepping tomorrow's meals. She sealed containers of collard greens, her hands steady now. The city outside her window hummed with life, indifferent to her struggle. But in that small kitchen under the flickering bulb, Amara felt a spark of her own. Clara's words had cut deep, but they wouldn't define her. She'd cook, she'd deliver, she'd fight. For Malik, for her mother, for herself. The morning sun broke through West Side's gray veil, casting a frail warmth over the cracked sidewalks. Amara Jackson pedaled her bike through the familiar streets, her delivery bag lighter today, though her heart still carried the weight of yesterday's wounds. Clara Bennett's venomous words, "This is a professional building, not a laundromat," echoed, in her mind, each syllable a bruise on her pride. But Amara, 28, pushed forward, her braids tucked neatly under a fresh cap, her raincoat scrubbed clean of mud. The rhythm of her pedals was steady, a defiance against the world's attempt to dim her. She was no stranger to hard days. Caring for her dying mother had taught her to bend without breaking. Today, she'd deliver meals to Technova Tower again, her mother's recipes packed tightly in her bag, collard greens, cornbread, a taste of home for those who never knew her struggle. In her tiny apartment the night before, Amara had stood over her stove, stirring a pot of smothered chicken, the scent filling the cramped space with memories. Malik, her 19-year-old brother, had poked his head in, his textbooks abandoned for a moment. "Smells like Mom," he'd said, his grin a flicker of light in her heavy heart. She'd smiled back, hiding the ache of Clara's taunts. "Gotta keep her alive in these pots," she'd replied, her hand steady as she sealed containers for today's orders. Now, as she rode toward downtown, the city's skyline loomed, Technova's glass spire catching the sun like a blade. She whispered her mantra, "Just get through today." At Technova Tower, the lobby was as pristine as ever, its marble floors reflecting the morning light. Amara approached the receptionist, her delivery bag slung over her shoulder. "Order for floor 15, she said, her voice calm but guarded. The receptionist, the same young man from yesterday, glanced up with a flicker of recognition. His usual indifference softened. "Got a big one today," he said, handing her a receipt with a surprising tip, $20 more than expected. Amara's brows lifted, but she said nothing, tucking the receipt away. As she turned to leave, she noticed a small paper bag on the counter, labeled simply, "For the delivery chef." Inside was a pair of waterproof gloves, sleek and new, and a foil-wrapped sandwich, still warm, its aroma of fresh bread and turkey stirring her empty stomach. A note slipped out. "Your food tells a story. Keep telling it." Amara's breath caught. She glanced around the lobby, but no one met her eyes. The gesture, small yet deliberate, felt like a hand reaching through her loneliness. She tucked the bag into her backpack, her fingers lingering on the gloves. For the first time in days, a faint smile curved her lips. She didn't know who'd left the gift, but it was a crack of light in her shadowed world. As she pedaled away, the sandwich warmed her hands, and the note's words warmed something deeper. Across town, in Technova's penthouse office, Julian Wright leaned back in his chair, a tablet glowing with Amara's file. He'd spent the morning reviewing her story, a former sous chef at the Grand Meridian. She'd left to care for her mother through cancer, now running a solo food business to fund her brother's medical studies. The photo, a candid of Amara, laughing at a market stall, her eyes bright despite exhaustion, stirred memories of his own mother, a diner cook who'd raised him alone. Julian had ordered meals from Amara's service for the executive floors, instructing his assistant to leave generous tips and anonymous gifts. The gloves, the sandwich, the note, they were his quiet way of saying, "I see you." He'd seen her, defiance in the lobby yesterday, the way she'd held her ground against Clara's cruelty. It wasn't just her food that impressed him, it was her refusal to break. Back in Westside, Amara stopped at a corner store to pick up flour for tomorrow's cornbread. Mrs. Rosa, a fellow delivery rider in her late 50s, leaned against the counter, her silver hair tucked under a scarf. Rosa, a former chef who'd worked soul food joints before arthritis slowed her down, was a fixture in Amara's life. A mentor who'd taught her to braise greens with just the right kick. "You look like you're carrying the world, child," Rosa said, her voice warm but sharp. Amara shrugged, the paper bag with the gloves dangling from her hand. "Rough day yesterday," she admitted, her voice low. "Some lady at Technova. She made it clear I don't belong." Rosa's eyes narrowed, her lips pursing. "Belong? Girl, you belong anywhere you choose to stand. I cooked for folks who wouldn't look me in the eye, but my food shut 'em up." She tapped Amara's bag. "What's this?" Amara hesitated, then showed her the gloves and note. Rosa's face softened, a knowing smile spreading. "Somebody sees you, Amara. Not everyone's blind." Amara's chest tightened, the words sinking in. She didn't know who'd left the gift, but Rosa's faith, coupled with the stranger's kindness, felt like a lifeline. That afternoon, Amara delivered another order to Technova, this time to floor 20, an executive suite. The receptionist handed her another hefty tip and a second note. "Your meals warm more than stomachs." Amara's fingers traced the words, her heart stirring. She thought of her mother, who'd always said a good plate could heal a soul. Back at Azardadiwa home, she unpacked her bag, placing the gloves on the kitchen table beside Malik's textbooks. He bounded in, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "New gloves? Fancy," he teased, but his eyes caught the note. "Who's this from, sis?" Amara shook her head, her smile cautious but real. "Someone who gets it, I guess." In his office, Julian watched a live feed from the lobby camera, a perk of his security access. He saw Amara's faint smile. As she read the note, her posture a little straighter than yesterday. He leaned back, his fingers steepled. His mother had taught him to notice the quiet ones, the ones who carried the world without complaint. Amara was one of them. He'd ordered more meals for tomorrow, another small step to lift her without her knowing. "Small steps," he murmured. To his assistant on the phone, "Let's see how far she can go." Amara sat at her kitchen table, the bulb flickering above. She unwrapped the sandwich, taking a slow bite, the warmth spreading through her. The gloves sat beside her, a promise of drier days. She didn't know who was watching, but for the first time in a long while she felt seen. Not as a delivery girl, not as a target for taunts, but as Amara, chef, sister, survivor. She closed her eyes, her mother's voice echoing. "You're beautiful because you're strong." And in that quiet moment a spark of hope flickered, faint but undeniable. The West Side dawn was a muted glow, the air thick with the promise of another humid day. Amara Jackson pedaled through the familiar streets, her bike's tires humming a steady beat against the asphalt. Her delivery bag, packed with containers of her mother's smothered chicken and collard greens, thumped against her back, a reminder of the hustle that kept her and her brother Malik afloat. The waterproof gloves from yesterday's mysterious gift hugged her hands, a small comfort against the lingering sting of Clara Bennett's taunts. Amara, 28, felt a flicker of hope from the anonymous notes. Your food tells a story, but the weight of her reality pressed harder. She was still the delivery girl, still the one who didn't belong in Technova's gleaming world. Yet she rode on. Her mantra, a quiet pulse. Just get through today. At Technova Tower, Amara's deliveries had become a quiet sensation. Her soul food, rich with flavors of home, drew murmurs of praise from the executive floors. She handed her bags to the receptionist, noticing a new warmth in his nod, a shift from his usual indifference. "Big order today, floor 18, he said, sliding a receipt with another generous tip. Amara's lips twitched in a cautious smile, but the moment was fleeting. Clara Bennett, Technova's marketing director, had noticed the buzz around Amara's meals, and it gnawed at her. From her corner office, Clara watched the lobby through glass walls, her manicured nails tapping her desk. A delivery girl, outshining her carefully curated image? Unacceptable. She placed a massive order, 50 meals for a team meeting, then canceled it minutes before Amara arrived, leaving a curt voicemail. "We changed our minds. Don't bother." Amara stood outside the tower, staring at her phone as the voicemail played. Her heart sank. She'd spent hours prepping extra chicken, greens, and cornbread, dipping into her savings for ingredients. The loss stung. Money. From Alec's textbooks gone. She leaned against her bike, the new gloves suddenly feeling heavy. Clara's voice, sharp and smug, echoed in her mind, blending with the lobby taunt. "This is a professional building, not a laundromat." Amara's jaw tightened. She wanted to march back inside, demand an explanation, but she knew it would change nothing. Instead, she pedaled back to Westside, the city's skyline a mocking backdrop to her defeat. That evening, a blog post surfaced, its headline a poison dart. "Delivery Girl's Game, Seduction or Strategy." The article, posted on a shady local, it implied Amara was charming a Technova executive for favors, her frequent deliveries to high floors proof of a calculated hustle. It spread like wildfire across social media, shared by anonymous accounts with venomous comments. "She's just a gold digger." Amara saw it during a break, her cracked phone screen glowing with the words. Her stomach churned, the accusations slicing deeper than Clara's taunts. She was no stranger to judgment, but this was a public crucifixion. Her name dragged through digital mud. Orders dwindled by the hour, clients hesitating, their trust shaken. At home, Malik burst through the door, his face tight with worry. "Sis, what's this garbage online?" he demanded, holding up his phone. The blog post stared back, its lies glaring. "They're saying you're messing with some CEO. Is this why you're getting those big tips?" Amara's heart twisted. Malik, her baby brother, the one she'd sacrificed everything for, looked at her with doubt. "It's not true," she said, her voice low but firm. "I'm just doing my job, Malik. You know me." He softened, but his eyes lingered on her, searching. "I just don't want you hurt, sis. People like that, they use people like us." Amara forced a smile, her chest aching. "I'm tougher than that," she said, but the words felt hollow. She stepped into the kitchen, seeking refuge in the familiar. The scent of simmering greens filled the air, grounding her. But as she stirred, the blog's words clawed at her. Gold digger, hustler. She thought of her mother who'd taught her to cook with love, not ambition. Was this what the world saw? A schemer, not a survivor? The doubt crept in, a shadow she hadn't felt since her mother's final days. She gripped the spoon, her knuckles whitening, and whispered, "I'll keep going." It was a vow, but it trembled. Mrs. Rosa, the silver-haired delivery rider, caught up with Amara at the corner store later that day. Her sharp eyes noticed the slump in Amara's shoulders. "What's eating you, child?" she asked, leaning on her bike. Amara hesitated, then showed her the blog post. Rosa's face hardened. "Lies like this? They're just jealous of your light. I cooked for folks who spat on my plates, but I kept serving. You do the same." She gripped Amara's arm, her voice fierce. "You belong anywhere you stand. Don't let 'em dim you." Amara's eyes stung, Rosa's words a lifeline pulling her from the dark. She nodded, clutching the gloves from the mystery giver, their weight a quiet promise. Across town, Julian Wright sat in his office, the city's lights sprawling below. An employee had forwarded him the blog post, its venom unmistakable. His jaw clenched as he reviewed lobby footage from yesterday, catching Clara's smug smile as she placed the fake order. He'd ordered more meals from Amara today, doubling the tips, but the blog's damage was clear. His assistant knocked, holding a new file. "Her orders are dropping, sir. People are talking." Julian's eyes narrowed. He remembered his mother enduring whispers for feeding her son on scraps. Amara didn't deserve this. "Keep the orders coming," he said, his voice low, "and find out who's behind that post." Amara sat at her kitchen table, the bulb flickering above. Malik was at the library, leaving the apartment quiet. She opened the note from yesterday, "Your meals warm more than stomachs," and traced the words. Rose's voice echoed, "You belong anywhere you stand." The blog's lies hurt, but they wouldn't break her. She thought of Malik's dream, her mother's recipes, the gloves that fit her hands like they were made for her. Someone out there saw her not as a target, but as a person. She didn't know who, but it was enough to keep her moving. She sealed tomorrow's meals, her hands steady, her heart defiant. The world could throw its blows, but Amara Jackson would not fall. The West Side morning was heavy with humidity, the air clinging to Amara Jackson's skin as she pedaled through the familiar streets. Her delivery bag packed with her mother's recipes, smothered chicken, collard greens, cornbread, thumped against her back, a rhythm that grounded her against the chaos of the past days. The blog post's venomous lies, delivery girl's game, seduction or strategy, still burned in her mind, each word a fresh wound atop Clara Bennett's taunts, and the canceled order that cost her savings. Amara, 28, gripped her new waterproof gloves, a gift from an anonymous ally, their weight a quiet reminder that someone saw her. But the dwindling orders and sidelong glances from clients weighed heavier. She whispered her mantra, her voice a low defiance, "Just get through today." At Technova Tower, the lobby gleamed with its usual cold perfection, but the air felt different, charged, like the calm before a storm. Amara handed her delivery to the receptionist, who met her eyes with a flicker of sympathy. "Big day up there," he said, nodding toward the executive floors. Amara frowned, sensing a shift she couldn't name. She pedaled away, unaware that across town, Julian Wright, Technova's 35-year-old CEO, was preparing to rewrite her story. In his glass-walled office, Julian reviewed security footage from the day Clara's Porsche splashed Amara, her smug voicemail canceling the massive order, and the blog's IP trail leading back to a source tied to Clara's assistant. His jaw clenched, his mother's memory, a cook who'd faced her own share of cruelty, spurring him to act. At noon, Julian stood in Technova's conference room, the city's press packed shoulder to shoulder, cameras flashing like lightning. Clara sat in the front row, her blonde hair immaculate, her smile a practiced mask. Julian's voice cut through the murmurs, steady but electric. "Enough! Amara Jackson's integrity will not be smeared by lies." The room hushed, every eye on him. She's a woman of talent and heart, delivering meals that carry her mother's legacy. The rumors targeting her are baseless, and we've traced their source. He paused, his gaze sweeping over Clara, who paled beneath her makeup. Technova stands for fairness. Today, I announce a culinary scholarship in Amara's name for aspiring black chefs, and an invitation for her to collaborate on our Innovation Lab's smart kitchen tools. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's hands clenched, her mask cracking. Amara, in her West Side apartment, watched the live stream on her cracked phone, her breath catching. Julian's words washed over her, each one a balm to the blog's poison. Tears pricked her eyes, not from pain, but from being seen, truly seen for the first time in years. The scholarship, the collaboration. It was more than she dared dream. She thought of her mother, who'd taught her to cook with love, and Malik, whose medical dreams rested on her hustle. The phone buzzed with a flood of new orders, clients returning with apologies. Amara's heart swelled, but she shook her head at the notifications. Fame wasn't her goal, survival was. She declined interview requests, choosing to pedal out, for her next delivery. That evening, a knock startled her at home. Julian Wright stood at her door, a bottle of sparkling cider in hand, his suit replaced by a simple sweater. "I wanted to meet you properly," he said, his smile warm but hesitant. Amara blinked, ushering him into her cramped kitchen, the bulb flickering above. "You didn't have to do all that," she said, her voice soft but steady. Julian shrugged, setting the cider on the table. "You didn't deserve what happened. I saw it. The mud, the lobby, the lies." Amara's eyes met his, searching. She saw no pity, only respect. They decided to cook, a spontaneous choice that felt right. Amara handed Julian a knife to chop onions for her mother's chicken recipe, his hands clumsy but earnest. "I'm better at boardrooms than kitchens," he laughed, nearly dropping the knife. Amara chuckled, the sound light, unfamiliar. "You're doing fine," she said, guiding his cuts with a gentle nudge. As the chicken sizzled, they talked about her mother's recipes, his mother's diner shifts, the weight of carrying a family alone. Julian's eyes softened, seeing his past in hers. "My mom used to say a good meal fixes more than hunger," he said. Amara nodded, stirring the pot. "Mine said it heals the soul." Malik burst through the door, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Sis, you're viral," he exclaimed, then stopped, eyeing Julian. "Who's this guy?" Amara smiled, a rare ease in her voice. "A friend, Malik, he's—" "Okay." Malik grinned, teasing. "Okay, he's got you cooking with him." Julian laughed, offering Malik a fist bump. The kitchen filled with warmth, the scent of chicken and laughter mingling. For Amara, it was a moment of peace, a rare pause in her relentless grind. Across town, Clara sat in her office, her access card deactivated, her suspension announced hours after the press conference. Her phone buzzed with notifications, colleagues distancing themselves, her reputation fraying. She'd underestimated the delivery girl, and now the cost was clear. Julian's words echoed in her mind. "We've traced their source." She tossed. Her phone aside, her perfect facade crumbling. Amara sat at her table, the meal done, the cider poured. Julian raised his glass, his voice quiet. "To you, Amara, for keeping going." She clinked her glass against his, her eyes bright. "To Mom," she said softly. The scholarship, the collaboration, they were doors opening, but this moment, this shared meal, was the first time she felt truly seen. Not as a delivery girl, not as a target, but as Amara. Chef, sister, survivor. The city outside hummed, indifferent, but in her kitchen a spark of possibility glowed, steady and bright. The west side dusk painted the sky in hues of amber, casting a soft glow over the cracked pavement where Amara Jackson pedaled her bike. Her delivery bag, lighter, now with fewer containers, thumped rhythmically against her back, each jolt a reminder of the new path unfolding before her. The sting of Clara Bennett's taunts and the blog's vicious lies, delivery girl's game, had begun to fade, replaced by the echo of Julian Wright's voice in the press conference. Amara's integrity will not be smeared. At 28, Amara felt shift, a fragile hope kindled by the scholarship and the invitation to design smart kitchen tools for Technova. Her new waterproof gloves, a gift from her anonymous ally, now known to be Julian, fit her hands like a promise. She whispered her mantra, softer now but resolute. Keep going. Amara's evenings were no longer just about cooking for deliveries. She'd enrolled in a culinary program, her nights now filled with the clatter of knives and the hum of instructors' critiques. In a gleaming training kitchen downtown, she stood at a stainless steel counter, perfecting her mother's peach cobbler recipe under the watchful eye of Chef Torres. "You've got a gift, Jackson," he said, tasting her dish, his nod a rare stamp of approval. Amara's chest swelled, but she kept her focus, her hands steady as she folded butter into dough. The scholarship covered her tuition, allowing her to balance classes with deliveries, her days stretching long but purposeful. Each knife cut, each simmer, felt like a step toward something bigger, a dream she'd buried when her mother's illness stole her old life. Back in Westside, her small food business was rebounding. Julian's press conference had sparked a wave of support, with orders flooding in from clients who'd shunned her during the rumor storm. Her phone buzzed with notifications. "Loved your greens," and Amara smiled, her cracked screen glowing with possibility. But not everyone was cheering. Clara Bennett, suspended from Technova, posted a public apology on social media, her words polished but hollow. "I regret any misunderstanding with Ms. Jackson. I wish her well." Amara saw it during a break, her jaw tightening. The apology was a performance, a bid to salvage Clara's crumbling reputation, not a shred of sincerity in it. Amara replied with a single line, "I don't need your words. I'm building my future." The post went viral, her quiet defiance earning nods from strangers online. At home, Amara's tiny apartment was a haven of warmth. Malik, her 19-year-old brother, sprawled across the couch, his medical textbooks open. "You're famous, sis," he teased, waving his phone. "Told that lady off like a boss." Amara laughed, stirring a pot of collard greens. "Just keeping it real," she said. But her heart was lighter. Julian visited often now, no longer a CEO in a suit but a friend in a sweater, carrying sparkling cider or a bag of peaches for her cobbler. One evening he knocked, his smile easy. "Thought I'd drop by for dinner," he said, stepping into the kitchen. Malik grinned, calling him the cider guy, and Amara rolled her eyes, handing Julian a spatula. "Earn your plate," she said, her tone playful. They cooked together, Julian's hands less clumsy now, though he still fumbled with the garlic. "You're getting better," Amara said, nudging him as he chopped, their laughter filling the small space. Over dinner, smothered chicken and cornbread, Julian shared stories of his mother, a diner cook who'd raised him alone. "She'd have loved your food," he said, his eyes soft. Amara nodded, her mother's memory close. "Mine said cooking was love you could taste." Malik chimed in, mimicking their mother's voice. "Put your heart in the pot, baby." The room erupted in laughter, the kind that healed old wounds. Julian raised his glass. "To heart," he said. Amara clinked hers against it, feeling seen not as a delivery girl but as herself. Mrs. Rosa, the silver-haired delivery rider, caught Amara at the corner store the next day. Her sharp eyes noticed the new confidence in Amara's step. "Heard about that scholarship, child," Rosa said, leaning on her bike. "And you told that fancy lady where to go." Amara smiled, clutching her bag. "Just trying to keep up, Miss Rosa." Rosa's face softened, her voice firm. "You're not just keeping up, you're shining. I cooked through worse than rumors in my day. Keep your head high." Amara's throat tightened, Rosa's words a mirror to her mother's. "You're beautiful because you're strong." She hugged Rosa, the older woman's warmth a steady anchor in her turbulent world. At Technova, whispers followed Amara's deliveries, but they were different now, admiration, not suspicion. The receptionist greeted her with a grin, slipping her an extra tip from the top floor. Amara's meals were a hit, her name whispered in boardrooms and break rooms alike. A local blog ran a feature, "From Mud to Mastery, Amara's Rise." She read it on her phone, her heart racing. Fame wasn't her goal, but the recognition felt like a nod to her mother's legacy. She tucked the phone away, focusing on her next delivery, her pedals steady against the pavement. Julian, in his office, watched Amara's progress from afar, his tablet open to the blog's glowing words. He'd kept his support subtle, visiting. Her kitchen, ordering meals, never pushing. His mother had taught him to lift others without stealing their light, and Amara's light was growing brighter. He called his assistant, his voice calm but firm. "Keep the orders coming, and check on her class progress." He leaned back, the city's skyline sprawling below, a plan forming to ensure Amara's path stayed clear. Amara sat at her kitchen table, the flickering bulb casting shadows over her mother's recipe notebook. She traced a page. Peach cobbler, Mama's way, and smiled. Clara's apology, the rumors, the canceled order, they were fading like mud washed clean by rain. Rosa's faith, Julian's respect, Malik's laughter, they were her foundation now. She didn't know where this path would lead, but for the first time she felt steady, her steps sure. The city outside hummed, but in her small kitchen, Amara was building something unbreakable, a future carved by her own hands. The West Side evening hummed with anticipation, the air thick with the scent of summer and possibility. Amara Jackson stood outside a small storefront, its sign glowing in the twilight, Mama J's Table. At 28, she was no longer just the delivery girl pedaling through rain-soaked streets. She was a chef, a sister, a survivor. Her mother's recipes now a beacon for a city that had once overlooked her. Tonight was the grand opening of her restaurant, a dream born from mud and defiance. Her hands, steady in the waterproof gloves that had become her talisman, adjusted the ribbon across the door. The memory of Clara Bennett's Porsche splashing her with filth lingered, but it was distant now, drowned out by the chatter of a crowd gathering to celebrate her. Amara's mantra, once a whisper, now sang in her heart. I kept going. Inside, the restaurant was a warm embrace of wood and light, its walls adorned with photos of her mother's kitchen, pots simmering, hands kneading dough. The scent of smothered chicken and peach cobbler wafted from the back, where Amara had spent weeks perfecting her menu. Her culinary classes, funded by Julian Wright's scholarship, had sharpened her skills, but it was her mother's legacy that gave each dish soul. The crowd outside swelled. Locals, Technova staff, even her old mentor, Mrs. Rosa, her silver hair gleaming under the streetlights. Malik, her 19-year-old brother, stood beside her, his medical textbooks left at home. For once, his grin wide. Sis, you did this, he said, squeezing her shoulder. Amara's eyes glistened, but she held her tears, her smile steady. The ribbon cutting was a blur of applause and camera flashes. Amara held the oversized scissors, her hands trembling not from fear but from the weight of the moment. This is for my mom, she said, her voice clear, cutting through the crowd's hum. For everyone who keeps going, no matter what. The ribbon fell and cheers erupted, the sound washing over her like a warm tide. Inside, tables filled quickly, plates of cornbread and collard greens passing under glowing lamps. A local reporter approached, but Amara waved her off with a polite smile. Let the food talk, she said, returning to the kitchen, where her hands found their rhythm among pots and pans. Julian Wright stood at the back, his presence quiet but unmistakable. No longer in a CEO's suit, he wore a simple jacket, his eyes bright with pride. He hadn't pushed Amara toward the spotlight, only cleared the path for her to shine. Their evenings cooking together in her tiny apartment, his clumsy knife, work, her patient corrections, had built a bond rooted in respect, not grand gestures. He clapped as she cut the ribbon, his smile soft but unwavering. Rosa caught his eye, nodding approvingly. That girl's a star, she said, her voice warm. Julian nodded back. Always was, he replied, his gaze fixed on Amara. Across town, Clara Bennett's world had unraveled. Her suspension from Technova had become permanent, her polished image shattered by the traced blog post and her hollow apology. She scrolled through social media in her darkened apartment, the glowing reviews of Mama J's Table a bitter pill. A headline stung, From Mud to Mastery, Amara's Rise. Clara tossed her phone aside, her hands shaking. She'd tried to dim Amara's light, but it had only burned brighter, exposing her own cracks. The city had moved on, leaving her behind. Back at the restaurant, Amara moved through the crowd, her apron smudged with flour, her smile genuine. Customers raved, their voices mingling with the clink of glasses. Rosa pulled her into a hug, her eyes misty. Your mama's proud, child, she said, her voice thick. You're shining. Amara's throat tightened, her mother's words echoing. You're beautiful because you're strong. She nodded, unable to speak, and returned to the kitchen. where the rhythm of cooking steadied her racing heart. As the night wound down, Amara slipped out, needing air. She walked to the corner where Clara's Porsche had splashed her a year ago, the road now repaved, smooth under the streetlights. She pulled the old, tattered gloves from her pocket, the ones she'd worn before Julian's gift. Kneeling, she placed them on the asphalt, a quiet farewell to the pain they carried. "This is where it started," she whispered, her voice steady. "But it's not who I am." Julian appeared behind her, his steps soft. He picked up the gloves, his fingers gentle. "I'll keep these," he said, his voice low. "A reminder of where you began." Malik ran up, his laughter breaking the silence. "Sis, you're a star," he shouted, pulling her into a hug. Amara laughed, the sound free, unburdened. Julian stepped back, his smile quiet but proud. "You did this, Amara," he said, his eyes meeting hers. She nodded, her heart full. "We did," she replied, her voice soft but sure. They stood together, the city's lights twinkling around them, a constellation framing Amara's triumph. The crowd at Mama J's table lingered, their voices a chorus of praise. A blog post went viral. Amara Jackson, the chef who turned mud into magic. Comments flooded in. "She deserves this, a real hero." Ayo. Amara didn't read them, her focus on the plates leaving her kitchen, each one carrying her mother's love. She thought of the nights she'd cried silently, the days she'd pedaled through pain. They'd led her here, to this moment. This light. Julian walked her back to the restaurant, their steps slow, deliberate. "You changed this city," he said, his voice quiet. Amara shook her head, her smile gentle. "I just cooked." But her eyes shone brighter than the neon signs. Above, the city had stopped to notice, not just her food but her heart, a heart that had turned a puddle of mud into a legacy that would endure. Amara's rise from a muddy street to the heart of Mama J's table shows that strength and heart can overcome any storm. Her courage inspires us all to keep going, no matter the odds. What part of Amara's story touched you? Was it her defiance, her food, or the quiet bond with Julian? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're eager to hear. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. Your support lights up these stories. Hit subscribe for more tales of grit and glory, and we'll meet again soon. Keep chasing your own light wherever you are.